Well, thank you very much for so much attention. We got a lot of views from our previous podcast and beautiful comments. So I'm very grateful. I'm inspired and very touched that this, which is my most favorite modality of working with myself, is being so well received. And in the past, these books were not received very well by many. Some bookshops wouldn't even keep them, and I know cases where people threw them away, they burned them. They determined they'll never deal with these books again, and I understand they are like nothing else out there, in my humble opinion, and maybe not even so humble. I'd like to begin with just clarifying a few things. There was a question, who is the author? I did mention it is Sian de Rohan. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that properly. And these books have been around for since 1984. So really 36 years these books are around, and they not the most popular books, but I think they're the most profound books. We have so many courses out there that are way softer and gentler on us, and just reminding us who we are, and how we could change our attitudes, and teaching us how to practice forgiveness, not necessarily even apply it, just showing us, try practice this so you become proficient at it. Truth about forgiveness is very simple. One has to realize whether they really want to forgive or not, because the minute they want to, it's done in an instant. And if there is a prolonged unforgiveness, it's just simply because the judgee is very attached to something that he wants to keep and punish the projection that they really believe they've wronged them. However, what they often don't see is that they had the magnetic field in themselves that would draw the situation to them. And so instead of dealing with the feelings that these situations bring up in them, we judge them, we condemn them, and we put them in this too hard basket, or I'll never forgive that. And with the thinker is not realizing that it's suffering a consequence of that. What I actually call crucifixion, that's really the right term for it. If we crucify somebody, what we don't see is that we condemn ourselves in the action of it, because the ideas do not leave their source. And so, where I like to take this is to introduction to the actual will, and what is it, and how is it found again, being lost? How is it accepted? How is it then evolved into something new rather than the old? So one popular opinion is, when we say will, it takes people to the power of willpower, or power of will, power of the determination. However, this particular will has nothing to do with it. This particular name is supposed to represent the mother aspect of creation. It's not the most popular subject, although it's coming through many different channelings, but this particular way is not well known. And so the thing about the will is that it needs to be first realized for what it is. And most people have made the separation in themselves from this will and created something what is called a false will. Okay? So these are the feelings that we convince ourselves that we have, but really they're not our feelings. They're more like a something that's masquerading as feelings, but they're really just thoughts and emotions. If you ask somebody, hey, how you feeling? And they say, within 2 or 3 seconds, they say, well, I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling angry. That there's no way the will had a chance to inform you how it feels in this very moment, because the will moves very slowly. Just caught myself speaking up fast, and that's me. That's still my spirit trying to rush the whole thing into what it's always done, going ahead, advancing faster than the will is capable to follow. So when this separation happens, the spirit itself makes a false will, and it's actually it has nothing to do with feelings, but it does have this quality of feeling to it. But I got to find out that that is not actually a feeling. That is just the substitute that spirit created for itself, or better say made for itself as a substitute to this mother of creation. So the introduction is really saying, hey, we have done a lot of spiritual work, spirit polarized work, and there are many literatures and channelings that are simply spirit polarized, and you'll be amazed how much is out there that is nowhere close to this will. So that's why this book, already in 1984, says, hey, now there's a time for another understanding which is lacking on this beautiful planet, that's because of that going into a horrible state of degradation or turning into a disaster. And it's a manifestation of this particular denial, because this will is actually the part of us that creates for us. And if this is not available, then we make stuff up and we call it creation. So you take something old and you mock up something new out of it, and you think, oh, this is new, but it's just an old in a different shape. However, will is capable of creating something that wasn't before. She's the mother. She gives the birth, and she births something brand new, and it's actually the mother that inspires the spirit to stay ignited. I'm sure many of you had experiences where for a few days you were in some elevated state of being, and then it was all gone, and wondering, how come I had this and now it's gone? Well, the mother in us is active, even so we're not necessarily aware of it. And so things happen, and the spirit does get, or our mind does get ignited. But with this ignition, what begins to happen, it's that our will is constantly creating. There is no time where the will is not creating. We're just not aware what we're creating. And so if we are thinking separate thoughts, if we're not grounded in our thinking, the will is going to manifest that separation. If we're searching for God, she is reflecting the lack of something in us. Now, if we reject that reflection, which we do, we actually just got rid of that which could have taught us what we're doing to ourselves. You see how upside down even the whole spiritual movement can be. And I'm not really judging it. I'm just saying, hey, it's without the will, this is really incomplete. And you might say, yeah, but I'm in touch with my feelings. Well, let's see. Because I thought I was in touch with my feelings. I was quite a, feminine man in many ways. I was a musician. I played classical guitar, very refined tonalities and, beautiful melodies and feeling and working with the tone and developing incredible capacity to produce beautiful sound on a classical guitar. I was very much into this feminine realm. And I thought I felt, but I realized actually when I got in touch with my true feelings that I was nowhere near my true feelings. And so these books, and it's 8 of them, will help us to navigate through seeing how we're actually not in touch with this part of ourselves that is will. Now we can occasionally be in touch with a little bit of divine will, but underneath all that is what we call the lost will. And that part of ourselves is just a lost will. It's not generally available. And so at some point it was suggested that we call for these feelings, call out to them, and that we get these feelings to reach us, not we reaching them. We virtually need to, the way our mind got constructed, it actually has not a very loving and accepting attitude towards the feeling. And really, it's not so much even when the feelings begin to arise, the feelings are not an issue. It's the spirit's attitude towards these feelings. Because you can run around and scream and express and keep expressing and, attack everything around you but at the end of the day, you might still be hating your hatred, or you might still not be fully accepting of your grief. Or let me put it this way, how about being totally in love with all feelings, no matter what they are? I'm talking in love. They emerge, and they don't mind to look very good. And you come with this loving, genuinely loving embrace. Or you come with your radical honesty and saying, hey, I'm still hating this feeling. I still despise to feel this, I still have horrible attitude against my shame. And so shame looks ugly, and she feels terrible because it's like the lost child that every time shame comes up, what do? We try and get rid of it. And we say instead, hey, I don't want to get rid of you anymore. I want to find out who you are, and I want to find out what is it that you're trying to show me? What is it you're trying to teach me? And so suddenly, instead of being attacking and punitive and rejecting, we develop or evolve our spirit, and many times through release of judgments or forgiveness, which is pretty much the same thing. And we come with this loving intent, which, by the way, and so we're coming with this incredibly loving attitude, which is the key of this whole work. Most fundamental ingredient in healing the will is this deep intent to love, this deep intent to heal, deep intent to find the new way, as opposed to having these punitive and rejecting attitudes towards our own feeling, which we then project on others. It's never the other. The other got magnetized by us to see what we're holding in this so-called subconscious, which really will is in some way, and ask me, well, where it's very difficult to access this unconscious. No, it's not. It's right in front of your eyes. Anything that you are surrounded by, you have magnetized to yourself. And because you have magnetized yourself and you constructed this reality from that part of you that is the will, which is creating, right? The outer reality is only reflecting to you what is still held in denial in your will, in your feeling body. It's not the person who comes and triggers you. It's they are your saviors. They are like, be grateful. Comes up a character that leads a country that might trigger you. Be grateful. Attack it. That's easy. That's what we've always done. But how about to go into place? How does this make me feel? And I'm not political at all. I'm just saying, what are these things bring up in us? And if we, 5G or this climate problems, how does that really make us feel? Yeah? And really find the true feelings, because first we find reactions, then we get emotional, and sometimes being emotional we think we are there, and being emotional is very important. Like it does lead us to the depth of closer to the core, but still we need to get to the will. We need to get to this pure part of us that only feels and only reflects what the Spirit is doing, and that is its function. And it's a brilliant, it's called right use of will. That's how we use it. That's what it's for. But do we know this thoroughly and profoundly? So what actually happened, our spirit being detached from this will, that's part of it, that helps us to experience earth, has gone, like the spirit's gone ahead of its own, sort of ahead of itself, and the will had no chance to reflect to it. This even happens in every sentence we say. Say, I am here. We say, I'm here, and we move on. It says, like, who is the I that's here? I. You say, I, and you begin to get in touch with the you are, I. So you let the will manifest that word, I. Like that whole thing, I am that. That's just that simple. Like, keep repeating and feel what that is the I, that I am. I am. I, who? I. Who is that? I. And now you're here, now you're really present with the I am. I am. You bring it to you. So you manifest each word into flesh, into experience. And we speak fast so we don't have to feel. But imagine feeling every single word. So the will has a chance to manifest everything you're expressing. So you come closer to it. So we need to learn how to slow down. There's a popular way in spirituality is like a speed up the vibration and expand and go ahead, and how can we do it faster, and using technology to speed up this what's already too fast. We're too fast. Our minds are filled with garbage, with media and data, and filling this mind with this data of this world and then judging it, it nails it onto the mind. It becomes an imprint. And instead of having and receiving spiritual impulses and revelations, we're receiving the news. The good news, bad news, doesn't matter. It still just clogs up this exquisite part of our mind that's supposed to be receiving light. It's supposed to be receiving the freshness, the newness of creation. Because what is creation? When we really look at that word, we made this world, we didn't create it. That's why things die in here. Creating is making anew now. How do you recognize you create? Because it's incomparable to anything. It reveals in you something brand new. You can't compare it to anything. That's creation. That's why we can never really define God, because it's always brand new. People arguing what is, and also we have so many images. I mean, that's really an important part of the spiritual, a real spiritual evolution, is to release all the images, and even your revelation of God from yesterday is just too old. It's like if I close my eyes, I go, okay, God, what are we up to today? Give me the download, give me the upgrade. The software is being changed every second. And what does a habitual mind do? It wants to have that same thing that it had yesterday that worked. And we're missing what's given. We miss the miracle that's occurring in this very moment. In this very moment, your will is creating the most exquisite state of being you can possibly even dream of. What do we do instead? Turn on the radio. And again, I'm not judging any of it. I watch movies and whatever. It's not to make it wrong. It's just to become aware that our mind is ahead of itself and our will has no chance to create for us. What's more, what happens is that the spirit comes up with an idea and the will goes, this is really not good for us. And the spirit goes, come on, and smacks it away. I'm going. As we end up in these situations, we often go like, God, I knew not to go here. Well, that was your will saying, it's not going to work. What does the spirit do? He smacks that response, smacks that intuition, and off we go, experiencing things that hurt us. The will already knows what's coming. The will is far more superior than the spirit. At this point, when she begins to rear what we call its ugly head out, we're going to go, oh my God, I get it. So, this is the decade of the year, the decade of the years of feminine evolution now. And I think a lot of this message will come from men finally stepping up, learning how to be truly present for their feelings. Stop projecting on them, stop controlling them, and basically become, hello, I'm here. Show me, reflect me. I truly want to know because my ways didn't lead me anywhere. And so the will begins to do this. And the will is the one who will awaken our mind and not only awaken it, but sustain it in this different level of awareness. Because without the will, the mind locks on something like, aha, I've got this. And the minute you say, I've got this, guess what? You just nailed the Christ on the cross again. I was like, we don't, because it's a constant movement. Everything constantly changes. There's one thing that never changes, right? There's a constant movement, and will is this movement. Think of a feeling and say, hey, like let's say anger. So like, I've been aware of my anger for years now. Yeah, you will be aware of it, but is that anger being so loved that it begins to be able to express the way it needs to express, and not by just acting out some kind of, most of the anger is what? We have an expectation and it doesn't get fulfilled, so we get angry. But we are against this anger in ourselves. So this anger is not a free-flowing, beautiful energy that just goes, yeah, rage, and it just does its thing without hurting anybody. Or when do we allow ourselves to express feelings like hatred? Like hatred is a very beautiful feeling because you can't love everything that you see. There's no way. Do you love child abuse? Or do you love, what's going on, child trafficking? Or do you love what people do to each other, neighbors? We can't love it. And so there is hatred. And what happens often in the spiritual realms is that, we're trying to get rid of these things. Like, I no longer have hatred. I'm now only love. Well, then you're loving, incest. Then you love everything, right? Because it's beautiful. It's not. So that's like the... sometimes we can escape our reflection, what's going on in the world, instead of transforming it. So if my hatred arises, do I have a loving attitude towards my hatred? Can I embrace it with these loving arms and say, hey, I'm with you. Let's express everything that's in there. And so where I was heading with this is that because we rejected certain feelings and certain ideas into the will is an unconditional acceptance of everything. So will is holding all this for us. So we go to therapy, hopefully get in touch with what we hold within and give it loving acceptance so it can release. To get rid of it is not going to work because we put it way, way deep in subconscious, and then we're wondering why we have a neighbor who does this and that, and why we have partners who do this and that. So I know I'm generalizing, but I'm also bringing this through my experience, how I have evolved my feelings. And I'll particularly come back to that feeling of hate, because when I finally allow myself to really hate, see, I didn't hurt anybody. I was in a safe space. No one around except, my closest buddy, and I was like, ooh, actually, I hate. And I just begin to allow myself to hate what I hated. And I don't know if you're still listening, but this is where a most incredible awakening occurred. Because when, after an hour of expressing absolutely everything I had hate for, and I was even coming up with things I did not know were held in me, because the minute I unplugged that cork, it just kept pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring, and guess what? It poured out. It received the loving acceptance. It poured out. And now, from that same place where this hatred was, came the most exquisite love I have ever experienced in my entire remembrance of my existence, which is huge, because through moving the will, you will discover your whole track from the centuries, and you can access civilizations that were here before the world was the way it was, and you will go before Earth was, and you can go into primordial forces and energies that were already in movement countless years, what seems like before, until you get to a place where you were originally created, and you will remember it. You will go, ha. So what we're looking at on Earth is just reenactments of reenactments of reenactments. And that's why some books say, whatever you're looking at is not it. And when we split off from the will, Spirit made up this little bit called mind, and within that mind there was this tiny little voice that said, don't worry, we will sort this out. And we didn't, because you can't sort it out without the will. No matter how much you meditate, no matter how much you think you're awake, without the will, we're going nowhere. Because without the will, you don't actually create the real heart. We just have an idea of love. I love this and I love that. I don't like that and that, but I love this. So it's not an unconditional love. Unconditional love exists when you love all of yourself. And unless you have that, you can't truly love anyone else, because one day you love them and next day they do something and you don't love them. So I think I might have said enough for this particular podcast. I don't wait for too long to dive in. I think this was pretty deep for the second podcast. And I think there was quite a lot there, as there is so much in this blue book that I have missed all this the first few times I read it. And one of the biggest mistakes I made was just the very fact that it said, express everything you feel. What did I do? I expressed everything I thought I felt. And that didn't look very good. And so I got rid of these books and I said, I'll never do this again. And then just this blue book just came back to me again. It says, hello, Cole. Read me. I have something to tell you. And I open this page and it says, remember, you need to express everything you feel. But by then, I did read through the whole series, and I realized that there is a part of me that only feels and it doesn't talk. And talking about feelings is not expressing feelings. It's still just talking about them. And then suddenly my feelings begin to express the way they do express. And I have to say my mind and my spirit bowed down and stayed bowed, stayed in this profound embrace of profound gratitude and really in the remembrance of creation, remembering what we could say, remembering God. Like suddenly, it's almost like you got to have these 4 parts of you ignited, and if one is missing, all the other ones are out of whack because they complement each other. So we have these 4 parts, which is spirit, will, heart, and a body. Yeah. So spirit is thought, is the electro, and the masculine, and the feeling is magnetic, feeling, and the pure feminine. Yeah. The masculine have so many ideas of what feminine is, and women know this very well. Men have no clue how to do you, how to truly be with you, how to take you to places that you yourself don't even dream about, and yet you intuit, you know it. And so, oh God, where am I going with this? Yeah, that's the whole different chapter right there when we actually begin to use the right use of will in an intimate relationship. When we're not getting a reflection from our will, we're getting a reflection from our closest relationships. So now you have this electromagnetic field, right? Spirit, electro, will, magnetic. And when they begin to align, when the spirit is no longer looking away from itself, it begins to look what it's its own, he will begin to create this electromagnetic field, which is what feels like love. It's that incredible magnetism and this spark that happens between these 2 polarities. And there's often like, well, forget the polarity. No. You got to have each polarity available to create oneness. Otherwise, spirit does that same thing. He says, ooh, I am one. I am one. There is no 2. Yeah, you're right. There is no 2. There is no will. It's just you're on your own, in your own little spiritual world, making sure no one disrupts you from meditation and anything emotional that happens in your life. You just go, oh. I was like that. I know, been there, done that. It was freaking crazy. I was so feminine. I was so detached in some way from reality. It was unbelievable, and still do the same at times. I lose it. But so now we have the third part, which is the heart, which is the birth of the polarity. You can't have the real heart, that father and a son thing without the mother, you will walk around and crucify still. Yeah, you gotta have the mother of creation to be fully creative, and she is living in you, and she has to become manifest. She has to manifest. So now we have this electromagnetic field. The field birth is the heart. Now the heart is like, there's so much to do with the heart, which really is what those books from 2 onwards are really dealing with. But I'm not really going there as yet, and I don't know if I ever will. But I can share some of the experiences that happened from going there. And so now you have these 3 parts, but it says 4 parts. So what is 4 parts? When these 2 magnets, this electromagnetic field, they click together, they become one. Now we are talking oneness. This oneness is the body. And when the will and the spirit are truly aligning in the body, your physical form begins to vibrate in a speed of alignment, in a speed of light. And then you become fully creative in your own rights. You're no longer dependent on anyone else, because everything is provided to you from this alignment. Anyway, I'm looking at these numbers on this recording device, and I better bring it to a close, otherwise it's going to be too long. So I hope this was in some way enlightening and acceptable. If you get triggered, remember to find out how did it make you feel, what I do and say, and then notice what is your relationship to those feelings arising. But then I am just a memory there somewhere, and you are evolving your own will to whatever the triggers are. So like I said, the book starts with this, this is meant to trigger you. And if you're not triggered by what I'm saying, then you have something to worry about, because that will is probably not fully responding, which is the condition of the world. The will is almost non-existent, and yet the whole planet is called Mother Earth, and Mother's essence is this pure feeling. I mean, look how magnetic she is. She holds the oceans down. She holds the mountains down. Otherwise we would just all spread all over the place. And she is a powerhouse. Guess what? She also lives in your will. And that magnetic, when it's freed up and opened, will magnetize to you anything you truly desire. Not necessarily as a physical thing first, but first as a complete fulfillment of any feeling. If you want to practice something incredible, just find a feeling of fulfillment, which is already in you, because we already have all four parts. They're all there. We just detach from them. And allow yourself to feel this fulfilling moment, and then step back and give this fulfilling moment to be felt in every part of you, in every cell, in your bone marrow, in your feet, in your hair, in your intestines, which rumble in my belly. I'm doing a liver cleanse, and just before I start recording, I took my herbs and my psyllium husk, and so you probably heard my belly going off. Anyway, at least it's authentic. All right, guys, thank you for lending me your ear. I'm so grateful for this opportunity forever to Barry, who is my brother from another mother, and a man I deeply care for and love. And I'm grateful to you for your comments, and I'm happy to respond and communicate. And if there is any questions, I can say things you don't like either. I'm really more into the authenticity. I'm not particularly into reactivity. I'm more into the true response, which I'm going to address, maybe in a few podcasts, the necessity to learn how to truly respond instead of react. Reaction is from the past. True response is now true response. So this is a fantastic subject to go into, and maybe I'll tackle it in the next podcast. Okay. So, salah.